We have the meta snapshot for TFT for patch 12.1. It is the New Year patch. That means everything has changed. And while things have certainly changed a lot in the meta, it kind of did, but not really. So in this video, I'll give you guys a snapshot of what is happening today, right now, and I will also give you my prediction on what will happen as the patch matures, along with, of course, explaining how a lot of these comps work with more details in the S, A, and B tiers. And then I'll also do this new thing at the end after we go over all the comps, where I will go over things like what items are must slams in the current patch in the early game, just to help you guys a little bit out there. So in the S tiers, we have, surprisingly, Chemtech Urgot. They got quite a few nerfs, but everything else got nerfed that they are still strong. But again, it's a little counterintuitive because Chemtech's got nerfed in 3 Chemtech. You still play 3 Chemtech, and then Urgot, I believe he got touched a little bit too. But because Morello got nerfed, and Morello, turns out when Chemtechs heal, Morello getting nerfed helps them a little bit, so they are still like by far in the S tier. They are a level above Socialite and the Yone comp. Socialite's still very good. It's still being played a lot. I'm not sure if it is because people are only playing it because they're used to playing it in the last patch, or if it is actually indeed this strong. I feel like it is slightly overrated at the moment right now, though. Yone, he is pretty good. He's like the other 4 costs. He wasn't really touched too much, and he shares a lot of items with Urgot, so it's a no-brainer that you go for Yone a lot because everything else got nerfed, and he relatively stayed the same. So yeah, that rounds out the S tier. If you guys want to like only play 2 comps, you could just play Yone and Urgot the entire patch pretty much. So after that, in the A tier, we have snipers. I thought snipers would actually be better. Surprisingly, they haven't quite picked up and got on yet. And the reason why snipers haven't quite caught on as much as Yone is because assassins are a thing in this patch. We'll get into them in just a bit, but guess what counters snipers? It's probably going to be assassins. It just makes logical sense because you put Jhin in the backline, Katarina jumps over, Talon jumps over, Shaco jumps over, they one-tap him. He doesn't have Guardian Angel because you're not building Guardian Angel anymore, because if you watch my patch preview, you would know that Guardian Angel did get a big nerf. So again, even though snipers were relatively untouched, and theoretically they should be stronger because of that, they're getting countered by a lot of the assassins out there. After that, we have Arcanists. Very solid build. You build Bramble Vests, you get perfect items on Lux. Maybe you even have a Socialite Hex in the back line somewhere. That is where Lux really shines. Overall, it is a solid comp. I would say that snipers are like A+ tier right now, and the rest of the things you see here, Arcanist and Innovator, Imperial, these are probably A tier, and then Katarina assassins. Right now they are A-. I might expect them to jump a little bit higher as the patch goes on though. And the reason why they need time to catch on is because people need to figure out what the very best way to play Katarina is, because a lot of times the first attempt isn't always the best one, especially since we have not played Katarina for a while. And back when we played her, she was too good that it forgave a lot of the mistakes with her. So now onto the B tier, we have Syndicates, another assassin comp. Protector Reroll follows right behind that, and then Tristana Reroll, and then we have Mutant builds. Mutants, like Malzahar is the primary carry, but I've seen Cho'Gath carry, I've seen Kog'Maw carry in a pure like 3 to 5 mutant build. C tier still playable, you just don't want to do it that much. Twitch Reroll, Heimerdinger, Scrap, Trundle Reroll, Misfortune, Warwick. I would say like cut it off here in terms of like comps you can actually play, and then like C- or below, like do not plays. Veigar, he got buffed a little bit because 6 Yordles is a little stronger, but I've not seen anyone actually attempt this seriously. Gangplank, and then Lissandra. So that is the summary for the comps. Let's get into how to play them, and of course again I will be going over like how to play the early game after all this, and also like what items to slam. So in the S tiers, we have Urgot. Again, no surprise here. 5 Chemtech is actually still good. If you get like a Chemtech spatula, throw in a Lissandra or even a Victor, depending on who you have items for, it's going to work out pretty well for you. So with the Guardian Angel change, that is the big one for this comp. It's still decent on Urgot. I still see people building it a lot. I built it a bunch. It's done all right. But some people go triple damage on Urgot. So there's a one trick who plays this right now. I have his lol chest on my website right here. But his name is Plum Bum, and he's been playing a lot of Urgot. I have not seen him build Guardian Angel, but everyone else who plays Urgot, they do build Guardian Angel, but they don't play it as often as he does. Not sure if he just never got it in his game or if he actually believes those are the best items on Urgot. But he goes triple damage. Damage items, I've listed all of them down here. It's like Runon's Last Whisper, GA, GS, Infinity Edge, Deathblade, Hodge, QSS. What I recommend is just slamming as many of these items as you can so you get more value out of them in the early game, rather than going for perfect items. The only required item I would say is the Runons. If you do get a Morello, Morello is very important in this game right now. Yuumi is going to be one of the better holders for that in this comp. Mundo's main tank. If you don't have Mundo 2-star, Zac is good. If you are super lucky, you get a Tahm Kench 2. Obviously, make Tahm Kench your main tank. And then you do cap out your late game with the Jinx. A lot of people right now, I've seen them sell their Urgot, put all their main items on Jinx. So if you do get a Jinx 2, people have been playing her a lot more. She's especially good with like a Chemtech spatula. But hopefully that helps you guys play the Urgot comp. Let's go on to the next one. We have Socialite plus Random. Obviously, Kai'Sa is going to be the ideal choice here. I list the other ones out just in case you guys are curious on what else you could do if you don't hit the Kai'Sa with the Socialite Hex. Also, it depends where the Hex is. Before, people were even playing Kai'Sa if the Hex was in the front row. I don't think it's that good anymore. But if it's second row, third row, or fourth row, definitely you want to be carrying Kai'Sa. If it's in the front row, Akali, Tahm Kench, Galio, probably going to be good options there. Main tank, of course, is going to be Sion. It's kind of hard to fit everything. You don't have to play Galio, by the way. If you only have a Galio 1, don't play him in the Socialite comp, because oftentimes you get healing from your augments, such as Thrill the Hunt or Celestial Blessing. Or there are some cases where you have like a Hextech Gunblade on your Kai'Sa, so you don't always need that third Socialite if you want to play other units instead of the Galio. But yeah, still very good because applying a debuff to the entire enemy team is always going to be preferred for a carry, or like if that is a carry that can do that, it's going to be pretty good. So yeah, she's always going to be good because of that, as long as Morello is not complete garbage. So yeah, play it the same way you did last patch. If you have a win streak, if you have a great Yordle opener, if you have a great Merc opener, go for this Socialite comp. It's still being played a ton. Again, I feel like this build is a little overrated. It didn't get nerfed that hard, but I feel like there are better things to go for, and people are just playing it a lot right now because they're just used to doing it for like the past 3 weeks, you know? But on to the next one, we have Yone. This build, a lot's changed, but not really. I see a lot of people going for 4 Challenger, 4 Academy. Yeah, there's the 3 Academy here right now because we do have the Academy Spatula on Fiora. It's one of like her best items in my opinion. So if you ever get that, go for the 4 Academy build. And essentially you just add in just any Academy and that will do. I prefer something like a Graves because he gives his like little blind thing, but literally the 4th Academy unit does not matter. It could be any Academy. After that, 4 Challengers at least is great for Yone if he's your primary carry. Items for him, so GA, again, it's still good. I just prefer the QSS now. Runon's, Last Whisper, all good stuff. The only required item, I'd say, is Runon's. It helps a lot to get the Challenger reset. In case you guys didn't actually read the Challenger buff, every time you get a takedown, your Challengers gain a bunch of attack speed. That's why Runon's is so good, because he attacks multiple units, so there's a higher chance for him to get a reset and get a lot of attack speed. It's also good because it helps that he doesn't get stuck attacking a tank and nothing else, so there's like double benefits for that, if that made any sense. Morello holder, Kai'Sa, obviously, she is still our queen. You can play her as your main carry if you get her to 2-star, so Morello, GA, Archangels, Rageblade, same type of items you would use for her in the Socialite build. And what I like to do is position all my Challengers in the same spot. That way they focus the same target down faster, and hopefully that leads to faster games. So another thing that helps with this comp, because they have faster games, is something like Thrill the Hunt. So if you have the choice between like Celestial Blessing and Thrill the Hunt's gonna be really good. A lot of augments are good in like quick fights, and other ones like Sunfire Board, really good in Challenger comps because they end fights so quickly. But yeah, it's pretty much the same thing we've been playing all this time, but I've seen more for Academy for Challenger than I have in the past, but most people go for like 8 Challenger or 6. So now onto the Jhin comps. These are the A tier. So Jhin, again, really solid comp, but lots of assassins in the game right now. One other interesting thing, you don't need to play snipers in Sniper Jhin. You could just play Jhin with 3 items and not run a Caitlyn or a Misfortune for the sniper and just play better units instead. So I'm sure someone's going to figure out a way to counter the assassins with the Jhin. We just have not quite seen it yet. So one important thing is the front line. So Jhin, he can work with any front line. So as long as you have a Jhin 2, you could be playing brawlers, you could be playing Scion, you could be playing bodyguards like we see here. Literally does not matter who is in your front line. As long as you have Jhin 2 with good items, just play whatever front line you have up front that's available in order to save gold. So that is like the key takeaway that I've been seeing for playing Jhin, because you just do not want to be rolling down for a lot of gold for your front line. So you just use whatever you have and use the Jhin 2 and use the extra gold to maybe go for a 3-star Jhin. Maybe you go level 9, maybe you go for like more legendary units. Pretty much save that gold that you get from whatever front line you get, like flex the front line, is what I'm essentially trying to say, and then use that to get advantages elsewhere, because you need that little bump in order to truly shine with this comp. But with that being said, like, the only core units I say are Jhin, Orianna, Janna, and Yuumi. Like, these 4 are probably like the best units to run for this comp, and everything else can be changed. So it really just depends on what you get in your game when you're playing the Jhin comp. Next build we have is Arcanist Lux. So one thing you have to be careful of, if you are ever contested on Vex, make sure you do not make the mistake of competing with the other person to try to get Vex 3, unless you have like 6 or 7 Vexes before you even consider doing it. So what I like about this build is that not a lot of people are going for Lux yet, at least in my games. Like, I'm pretty sure in most of my games so far, there haven't been too many Lux players. A lot of the higher level people are playing it a bunch, so your mileage may vary in terms of how much it is actually being played. But she is great with her best in slot items, which I think are Blue Buff, Jeweled Gauntlet, and Infinity Edge. One key mistake that I see people making a lot with the Arcanist build is that they try to go for Victor carry. You almost never go Victor carry, and the only way you do it is if you get a Victor 2 and you get a lot of Scholars. If you have at least 4 Scholar, go ahead and play Victor. If not, Lux is a much better unit. Why, you might ask? Like, Victor's a 5-cost unit, Lux is a 4-cost unit. Shouldn't Victor be better than Lux? In theory, yes, but Victor requires a very strong front line, and you might have noticed our front line. It is Vex, Taric, and Swain. Taric and Swain in the late game kind of suck as tanks, and Vex, even though she's a 3-star, she's just 1 unit, so if she gets eaten by Tahm Kench, if she gets Zephyred, your team's going to get steamrolled, and Victor's not going to have enough time to cast, unless he has 4 Scholars. So unless you get like a lot of Scholar emblems or augments, don't bother with Victor. If you get Lux 2-star and you have perfect items for her, of course you could put your leftover items on Victor, but primarily you want to be running a Lux carry. After that, we will go into the Innovator comp. So Innovator, it's kind of like a Jhin comp, right? Because you mainly want to be running Jhin with this, but I've seen Seraphine carry actually work out really well. You build like Rageblade, Shojin, and Morello. I don't know why it isn't in this picture. I'll add it in later. And she actually does a lot of work with that. You could also play a lot of enchanters if there's a lot of AP in the lobby, and if not, just go for the dragon as well if you are going to have the Innovator augments by going 7 Innovator. Both those options are really, really good. The bear, which is the 5-cost Innovator, actually got buffed a bunch. So I've actually seen quite a few like mid to late game boards running 5 Innovator. They don't win the game, but they get like 3rd or 4th place pretty often from what I've been seeing. Let's get on into the next build. We have the Imperial Samira Reroll. So you may have noticed there's a lot of empty space here because you could add in like 4 Challenger, you could add in 5 Imperial, you could add in 4 Assassin. It really depends on how your game is going. So I don't do this often, but I have a spatula item on our main carry. Assassin Spatula is by far the best item on Samira. If you don't get this, go for Infinity Edge, Last Whisper, Giant Slayer, like any attack damage item will do if you can't get this. But it is just so much better when you have Assassin Spatula, because if you read what Samira does, if she has an enemy adjacent to her, she does like a AoE damage effect. So imagine she jumps to the enemy backline, there are a bunch of squishies back there, and then she AoEs all them down. So that is why Assassin Spatula is so good, and coincidentally, you're running Imperials, you're running Talon. So you already get assassin buff like automatically, so it's a really good thing to do. You don't need it to make her work, but it is a lot better, a lot more comfortable to do it that way. So let's say you don't have assassin spatula. What do? You just add in 2 more challengers. Literally anyone can do it. It could be like Camille, Warwick, Fiora, Yone, like it doesn't matter. Kaisa with Morello, that would probably be the best one. And then just play her as a 3-star Samira and get a lot of resets with the challenger buff by focusing down 1 unit. Similar to how we play Yone or how we position Yone before. Sion's going to be your main tank. Put any tank items you have left over on him. But you definitely want to prioritize Samira items. I think Bloodthirster is her best item. I'm not a huge fan of GA, though I have been seeing it. And you could also do stuff like Handed Justice if you can't get specifically a Bloodthirster. And Runon's is also still decent on her, i.e. Last Whisper. All the items I talked about before is good. So on to the next build, Katarina. Welcome back. Maybe. Probably. It's pretty good. Like 3-star Katarina. The only thing I am worried about is that people right now who are playing Assassins, they are uncontested. So if this comp does ever become good, let's pretend that next week Katarina is S tier. People are going to start contesting it, right? Is it going to be that great still after people contest it? We're not really sure. We're going to find out in this next week. But right now, I do think this is a very playable comp because, again, not too many people are playing it. It's pretty much very similar to the build before. Play a lot of Assassins, play a lot of Academy, depending on what augments you get. And yeah, Ionic Spark's going to be one of her best items, i.e. really, really good. And then, of course, you like to have 1 healing item. It could be a Hand of Justice, could be a Hextech Gunblade. You could get it from augments like Thurl the Hunt, really good on Assassins. Pretty much the same augments that ends fights quickly that were good on Challengers are also good on Assassins. So like Thurl the Hunt and Sunfire Board are 2 that come to mind. Ascension are pretty bad for both of those comps. So just one thing to keep in mind, but we'll get more into the augments later. Next up, we have the B tier Syndicate. This is the other assassin build. So this one, it revolves around 3-star Shaco I've seen a lot. And sometimes people go for the Akali if they can't get the Shaco, but I think the 3-star Shaco version's a little better. The one trick with this build is that you cannot build a defensive item on Shaco. So don't build stuff like Guardian Angel. He really wants like triple damage item. So Infinity Edge, obviously the best item in Assassins. After that, you might want a Last Whisper if you have a lot of tanks or bodyguards that you're facing. Runon's is good, so he attacks multiple things. I like RFC because it gives him a little bit of safety. Giant Slayer's really good, and Deathblade's really good. Hand of Justice is really good. Pretty much like all the usual suspects for triple damage items, that's going to be what you put on Shaco. After that, like Morello, great on Braum. Warmogs is good on him because the Syndicate buff gives him resistances, so the Warmogs gives him health. And then 5 Syndicate is often enough. You could go 7 if you have a unit to put in that's really strong to buff up, because 7 Syndicate gives a Syndicate buff to your entire team. So if you get like a lot of 2-star legendaries, that's going to be something that you want to put in. Socialite's really good as well because you get to play Akali and put her on the Socialite Hex, or Shaco, either or, whoever your main carry is, and you pretty much go from there. But yeah, just reroll level 7 for Shaco 3. Protector reroll, so this comp is very augment specific and you need a good start for it, so you don't actually go this comp that often. Essentially, it's kind of tricky to play. You can't just like force this build. You can't just be like, oh, I have a lot of protectors, let me go for this. You really need the augments and the units, which is why it's in the B tier, because when this comp does work out, it destroys a lot of teams, but when it doesn't, because you don't have the right augments or you don't have enough of the champions, it's just not gonna fly because it takes way too long to get this comp online, and you need to hit both the 3 stars of your tanks and the 3-star Kog'Maw for your damage. So play at your own risk. It is a risky comp, but essentially tank items on Kassadin, reroll at level 5 for Kassadin 3, and if you get the other ones, Garen, Graves, and Caitlyn 3, that is definitely good as well, but Kassadin's the main one you want to worry about. After that, you want to go to level 6, reroll for Kog'Maw 3, get a Rage Blade on him plus 2 damage items. Giant Slayer and Hodge are probably the best, because I like having some sort of healing on the Kog'Maw if you don't get it from your augment. But yeah, really, like, it's just like any reroll comp. You need enough champions to go for it, or enough copies to go for it, and this one coincidentally also needs good augments. So now onto the next comp, we have Yordle Tristana. I have not played Tristana like ever, but I see other people playing it, so I have to put it in here. Just because it is a comp that people go for. I've actually seen people play 6 Yordle with Tristana as well. I've seen the sniper version that we see here with the Jhin. Lots of different options you could go for, but you want to obviously reroll for Tristana and do that on level 6. But if you go for the 6 Yordle version, reroll on level 5 first, get Ziggs and Poppy to 3-star first, and then work on Tristana and Lulu at level 6. Note that when you play 6 Yordle, you don't have to play Veigar because Tristana is your main carry, but if you get it like a 2-star Veigar in the late game, you could go ahead and play it if you have room to do so. Next up, we have Mutant Malzahar. I don't know what to feel about this comp. Pretty much all the mutants are playable. You just have to adapt your items to what your mutant is. So, do you have the Adrenaline mutant, which is the one that gives extra auto attacks? You probably don't want to do Malzahar carry. You want to do Kog'Maw or Cho'Gath carry instead. Let's say you get the one with reduced mana. You probably want to do Malzahar carry and not Kog'Maw carry. So you gotta look at what augment you have, or sorry, what mutant trait is in that game, and use that to your advantage for choosing your itemization and your carries. You also have to match that up with what units you get in that specific game, so it is a little tricky to play. So there's no one set guide to mutants. It depends really on whatever you get. But yeah, still a solid comp. It's just too hard to rate this without knowing what the mutant trait is. But let's go on into the C tier. Heimerdinger carry, I've not seen too many people play it. You could try it with 6 Yordles because they did get buffed, so maybe this comp still does work even without like an amazing start. C tiers and below, normally I say like only play if you have an amazing start for it. But maybe there is a way to do it with 6 Yordles that hasn't quite been experimented with yet. Twitch Reroll, oh man, I've not seen people play this either. It's really good up until like stage 5.5 or something like that. Twitch kills literally everything, but then all of a sudden he just stops killing everything and then you lose every single round. So if you do a Twitch reroll game, you want to make sure you take full advantage of the early game, and then you need to find a way to scale deep into the late game. So one way to do that is maybe getting an Akali 2, Yuumi 2, random legendaries, throw them in with your Twitch, and just stop caring too much about your Twitch in the late game. That's probably the best way to play this, but again, it's just a reroll comp, so only go for this if you get a lot of Twitches in the beginning of the game. Scrap, man, yeah, just not as good anymore. This was one of my favorite comps, but it's hard to make it work. There must be a way to do it, I'm just not quite sure yet, and I haven't seen other people play it that much either, so Scrap, I'd kind of put this on the back burner for now, but maybe next week we could come back and look at it. After that, we have Bruiser Trundle. Yeah, unless you get like Featherweights 3 or something like that, probably not worth going for Trundle. But yeah, that is pretty much it for the comps. Let's get into the items at the start of the game. So I have the item priority here. Bow, Chain, Sword, I think are the best. Bow because Urgot, Yone, you want a bow. Chain Vest, I like it if you are going for like Bramble Vest because it's good against those physical damage teams. It also builds the GA still if you're going for Kaisa. Sword, again, Urgot and Yone. Maybe Sword should be where Chain is. But yeah, it's a very important item for them. Sword's also really good on Jhin, snipers, and on the assassins. Glove, really good because all the comps we stated above need Last Whisper, or really like Last Whisper. So Glove is really high up as well. If you're going like AP comps like Malzahar or Arcanist, Rod's obviously good. Belt's still decent because you could build the Morello. But apart from Morello and Redemption, I don't really like any of the items that Belt builds. I guess you could build Warmogs as well, but I'd rather have something else, you know? Negatron, same story, doesn't build that much. It builds Runons and QSS. I guess you could build Ionic in some cases, but I feel like Ionic's a little weaker now than it was before because it got nerfed a bunch. And then Tier, I don't like Tiers at all. If you want to see me cry a lot, go check out my stream at twitch.tv/BunnyMuffins LOL. I stream like night times Eastern time from around like 9 or 10 p.m. until like 2 or 3 a.m. That's just how my sleep schedule is. We'll see if it gets fixed. But now I want to go over the start of the game. So the slammable items in the early game that I recommend right now are Morellonomicon, Runon's Hurricane, Last Whisper, Warmogs, Static Shiv, and Redemption. Other items that I would build that don't use components that we mentioned before is Bramble Vest. So those are like pretty much I'm always slamming those items in the early game. That doesn't mean that other items can't be built. It's just that if I get those, I normally just build them right away to get usage out of them early on. The reason why you want to do that is because the longer an item component sits on your bench unused, the less value it has to you because you don't win streak with it or because you lose a lot more HP with it. Keep in mind, if you are doing like a lose streak strategy, of course, like don't build too many items to make you too strong and win. But I'm just giving you some of the slammable items that we have in the early game. In the early game, you will also want to do either a Yordle start, Mercenary start, or try to win streak. So with that in mind, you need to take a look at augments that help you win streaks, such as like item grab bag, featherweights. Things that give you immediate power are going to be great for that. And I typically only go for those if I can actually win streak, such as having like at least 1-2 start and a decent synergy on my board. But that's pretty much like the quickest early game guide you can get. Let's go over like the summary and what I think will change in the next coming week. So again, I talked about this before, Katarina Assassins. If it gets contested a lot, will it still be good? Will it jump up to S tier or will it stay at A tier because not everyone will be able to go for it? Maybe it's like that other patch where Katarina 2-star is enough to stabilize the entire game. I don't think she's quite that strong, but Katarina 3-star definitely is pretty scary. Next up, I want to talk about Socialite. Is it a little overrated? I think it is a tiny bit overrated still. Maybe it's like S- A+ tier, but right now it is being played a lot. So if you want to just do what you were doing last patch, you could still do the Kaisa nonsense that everyone's been going. Snipers, again, their strength depends on how strong the assassins are, both the Syndicate and the Katarina. But the comp I'm most interested in are these three right here: Arcanist, Innovator, and Imperial, because these are all comps that have they've been either at the top or the bottom. They've kind of been jumping around, but we haven't seen them in a while. I personally love the Arcanist comps because when the set 6 came out, I was only playing Arcanist. Innovators, obviously really fun if you get them early, but they remove that possibility by changing when their augments spawn. So they've been a lot weaker since that time. And lastly, Imperials. Is Talon the carry? Is Samira the carry? Who really knows which is by far the best? Because I've seen both. I've seen Talons with like QSS and like RFC, but I think Samira's a little better. It also depends on what spatula items you get, because we all know like the Assassin spatula on Samira is really, really cool. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. I do a rundown of the best comps every single week. So all these changes that we talked about, we'll find out what actually happens to them next Friday. So if you guys did enjoy this rundown, go ahead and subscribe below. And also check out this website, BunnyMuffins.lol, if you want like a quick reference and don't want to watch the video again. But that's going to be it for me. Hope to see you guys later. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to share and subscribe. And of course, smash that like button. Each like is an LP I gain before the next video.